Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 10-minute Bible lesson. We really appreciate you tuning in, and we've been doing our lessons about the life of Jacob. Now, why would we do that? Because his life is so interesting. There's so many ups and downs about his life. It's kind of like ours. So what did Jacob do? He kind of got in trouble in a way because he stole the patriarchal blessing from his brother Esau. Yeah, that's right. His dad Isaac was planning on giving that to the oldest son. Now, they were twins, but he was still the oldest son. And he was going to bestow that on him, and on that. That was his intention. And Jacob tricked him out of it. Now, what do you think Esau thought about that? Oh my, he was really angry. I mean, it tore him up. In fact, he was so mad and so angry, he planned on committing murder. He was going to murder his brother. And he'd already thought about it. He said, you know what? My dad's old. One of these days he's going to die. And when he does, I'm going to kill my brother. Now, their mother, Rebecca, heard about it. And she finds out, and here's what she's going to do. She's going to send Jacob away. And let's go ahead and read. So this is found in Genesis 27. So let's go ahead and read verse 42. It says, and the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. So somebody heard and told her, which is a good thing. I think maybe God was in that. So she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, surely your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you by intending to kill you. So Jacob is warned by his mother about his brother's intentions, and then she tells him this. Let's look in verses 43 and 44 in Genesis 27. So it says, this is what his mother says to him. It says to Jacob, now therefore, my son, obey my voice, arise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay with him a few days until your brother's fury turns away. So Rebekah says, I want you to listen to me. I want you to obey me. I want you to go to my brother, it'd be your uncle, Uncle Laban, and he lives in Haran in Mesopotamia. And I want you to stay there a few days. So did Jacob do that? He did. Did he stay a few days? Well, he stayed quite a few days. In fact, he stayed 21 years. Think about that, 21 years. Now, on his journey, when he left home, he traveled about a day's journey, and it became night, so he kind of had to make a camp. So he made a camp, and he spent the night there in this certain place. And it would be a night that he would never, ever forget, this particular night. And let's go ahead and read about it. And it's in Genesis 28 verses, that's Genesis 28, we're out of 27 and 28, in verses 10 and 11. Now Jacob went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. So he came to a certain place and stayed there all night because the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of that place and put it at his head. Sounds like he's going to make the stone a pillow, doesn't it? And he lay down in that place and slept. Okay, so listen, this was a really strange event that happened. And the reason it was such a strange event is because while he slept, he had a dream. And his dream was about God. I wonder, have you ever had a dream about God? You know what I remember, before I became a Christian, before I was saved, as a young man, I think I had been to church and heard the preacher preach about Jesus coming back. And it must have been that, because that night I dreamed about Jesus coming back, and it was so real to me. and I wasn't ready. I wasn't right with God, and it scared me. It was kind of almost like a nightmare. But this is not a nightmare that Jacob has, but he does have a dream. And this dream, after this dream, his life would be changed forever. And so let's read about it. This is in Genesis 28, verse 12. Then he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and its top reached to heaven. Now get that. There was a ladder set up on earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And there the angels of God were ascending and descending. Okay, just picture that. A dream Jacob dreamed about a ladder. And you might ask, well, why? What makes that so important? It's because it was a very special ladder. And so if you notice in that verse, the ladder was set up on earth, but it reached up to heaven. And so I'm thinking that it makes us think, would this be a place? Would this be a stairway to heaven? I mean, it sounds like it to me, because it says it was set up on earth and it reached to heaven, and the angels were ascending and descending. So listen, you and I, we must have a way to get from here to there. And lo and behold, Jacob has this dream about that. And this ladder is set up on earth and it reaches to heaven. Now, it reminds me of a passage in the New Testament. In fact, it's in like the first chapter of the Gospel of John, where Jesus is speaking to Nathanael, and he calls Nathanael to follow him. And Jesus said to Nathanael that he saw him earlier when he was under a tree. I believe that's I may have gotten that wrong, but you can check that out. It's in chapter 1. But this so astounded Nathanael that Jesus had known about him and saw him when he was somehow probably meditating, maybe thinking about God, that Jesus knew that it made Nathanael make a confession. And so Nathanael's confession was, he confessed, he says, "You are the Son of God, the King of Israel." And here's what Jesus said to him, which is an interesting thing, and it ties in with our lesson. Now, this is in John chapter 1, verse 51. And he said to him, that is, Jesus said to Nathanael, "Most assuredly, I say to you, hereafter you shall see heaven open, and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." It reminds me of Jacob's dream about the ladder. Now, I'm convinced that Jesus is the stairway. That is to say, he's the one that came from heaven down to earth to set up a way to get from here up to there. He provided a way up to heaven itself. And so in this dream that Jacob had, he had an encounter with God. Let's go on and read in verse 13 of Genesis 28. "And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your descendants." So, what is the Lord's message to Jacob? It is a confirmation of a promise that God made to his grandfather, and then reaffirmed it to his father Isaac, and now he's renewing that promise to Jacob. And he's telling him that he's going to give all of that land to him that he was lying on. All of that land would belong to his descendants. Now let's go ahead and read the last verse that we have for today, and that's in Genesis 28, verse 14. So it goes on, and God is continuing to speak to him. And your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and the east, to the north and the south, and in you and in your seed. Now, I think that's talking about Jesus eventually. In you and in your seed, all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So this is a great promise that God began with Abraham, passed down to Isaac, carried it on to Jacob. But you have to understand that Jacob wasn't married. He's a young guy, fairly young. He didn't have any children. But God had said to him that his descendants, think about this, would be as the dust of the earth. And they would spread the south, the north, the west. They'd spread all over. And through his seed, all of the families of the earth would be blessed. That has to be Jesus, because through Jesus, each family and each tribe and each people group will be in heaven because of what Jesus has done. Well, that's all we have today. We have to kind of cut it off there because we want to pick it up. There's more about this dream and about this encounter, and we'll pick it up next time. So we appreciate you joining us today and hope you have a really good week.